Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week we finish our look at the Halloween series with Jamie Lee Curtis's return to her debut role as Laurie Strode in the 1998 Halloween 20 Years Later, or Halloween H20. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the upcoming Ben 10 comic series from IDW. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man, and a contributing writer to Rockabilly Online and Tales from the Grave for Monsterverse. And, of course, as we mentioned last week, Halloween Man is coming soon from Monsterverse. Those two universes have merged. Say hello, Drew.
Hello, Drew.
Hello. Also in Austin, Tony Salvaggio, writer of the Victorian mech comic Clockworks from Humanoids, and Psycom, the manga from Right Stuff and Tokyopop, and lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars, the man who never sleeps. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also in Denver with color commentary, host of the mom-oriented podcast Pod Moms, attorney Joy Guzman. Say hello.
Howdy.
Howdy. Okay. Halloween H20, 20 years later. I've been wanting to talk about this for like the couple years we've been doing the show. Halloween H20 is a 1998 American slasher film. It is the 7th installment in the Halloween series, but it is a direct sequel to John Carpenter's Halloween and Halloween 2, and seems to be in a different timeline from Halloween 4, 5, and 6. And those movies just didn't happen. It's set 20 years after the events of the first two movies, and it centers on the post-traumatic Laurie Strode living in fear of her murderous brother Michael Myers, the guy who tried to kill her all those years ago. When Michael eventually appears, Laurie has to face the evil one last time whilst the life of her teenage son and his prep school hangs in the balance. That is Halloween H20, so saith Wikipedia. I'm looking forward to discussing this because it's fascinating to me that Halloween has lasted so long and has two totally different timelines. So to get our first impressions, and I'll make mine extra short because I just gave
3 different timelines.
Okay, save that until we get to it. Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is continuity once we do first impressions. So let's for once in life, Julia, why don't you do first? Tony, you go second. Drew, and then I'll go. So, Julia, lay it on me. What is your first impression of Halloween H20?
Well, I don't hate it. I don't hate it as much as I hated the last one that we did, the second one. I don't think, again, that it's even a fraction as good as the first one is, but it's, it's okay. It's kind of entertaining, a little bit confusing because there's the movie itself couldn't decide whether it wanted to be in continuity, have the 4 through 6 be in continuity or not. In fact, there's some stuff in the trivia about how they actually had scenes that talked about 4 through 6 and the events that happened, and then they took them out. So that kind of makes it really confusing. It gives you a little bit of a headache. But it's interesting. The end of the movie is satisfying, and then Jason had to go and tell me that there's a movie after this one that undoes the end, which really made me mad. So we can talk about that at some point. But anyway, so, I kind of give it a meh rating.
All right, Tony, did I say howdy? Somebody in the chat room, Nate Darren, says, did everybody say howdy? Yes, because we're all from Texas. I guess that's what I would say. Except for Tony, he's actually a real Southern boy.
No, yeah, Tony, but Tony says howdy all the time.
All right.
I think Drew just said hello, Drew.
He may well.
Yes, I was being blue.
Monsieur Tony, what are your initial thoughts? What do you want to share with us about Halloween H20?
I think my 2 notes were, I wish we had stopped at part 1. And I think H2 no. And it's weird because
there should have been only one for the Highlander too.
I actually remember seeing this in the theater and going, oh, well, I guess that was okay. But upon rewatch, I definitely have changed my mind.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's done. Like, I need to see the first one. And like I said last time, I still enjoy like the end of 5, but geez.
All right,
man,
I can't wait to get into the why for that. Drew, are you coming from a whole other direction, if I recall?
180 degrees away from that. I I will admit that this is not a perfect movie, but I really like this movie. I would say next to the first one, this is probably this is my favorite sequel to Halloween. Nothing is going to be as good as the original Halloween, which is a bona fide classic American film, in my opinion. But this is the best sequel. It's got some goofy 90s isms in there, but other than that, I really love this movie. And honestly, I agreeing 100% with Julie about the ending. They should have just stopped making Halloween movies. The ending of this movie is the perfect ending to the franchise. Yes. They just should have stopped.
Well, I mean, if anything, these movies teach you that you can restart Basically, these movies are like a giant Doctor Who episode. In a sense, every movie could be a different timeline. As far as I'm concerned, Laurie Strode's timeline, or at least my favorite version of her timeline, ends here. Halloween Resurrection is a whole other universe, and in fact, I rewatched all of the Halloween movies in preparation for tonight's episode because that's how busy I am, and I did not watch the last one. In fact, I can say all, and I don't even include that last one, Halloween Resurrection, in all. To me, this is where it ends. So, my first thoughts. I actually like this movie because I think it brings Laurie's story to an end. I think, really like the first one, it's all about Act 3. The rest is just sitting there. It's like, King Kong versus Godzilla. It's just talk until you finally get to Act 3, and there's like some good action going on. I also think, Halloween 6 was pretty darn close, but this is way less sleazy than that one. That one, you're right, that this has some weird 90s like meta stuff thrown in, whereas Halloween 6, boy, that was some sleaze-tastic stuff, and so.
Well, it's also just like there's some goofy humor in this movie that seems out of place with the tone of every other Halloween movie. But
well, I mean, the movies vary wildly, and in fact, let's go straight into talking about the continuity. One thing I'll say about that is that the tone of the Halloween movies is not really necessarily consistent, so it just really briefly on the tone. The first one, there's that feeling. I mean, don't you remember that feel of, just it's all the piano and the dun dun, and the whole time she's looking out the window. Is he there? Is he not there? And it has this sort of sleepy feel until the end. This movie's not like that. In fact, none of the other movies are like that. They never, ever did that again with that feeling of a kind of a 70s, like melancholy fear going on. This movie, captures some of that pace of at least holding off all the action till the end, but it's still, it's a very fast movie. And the others, though, are very much just sort of fast-moving, crude slashers. I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying that that's what those movies are. So what do we got here? When does this movie take place? Anybody want to like lay down like how this fits into the continuity? Can anybody explain how this fits in? Not me, because I don't want to just keep hearing myself talk.
I think this is best viewed. I mean, there are some attempts to connect it to the other sequels, but I do think this is probably best viewed as a direct sequel to Halloween and Halloween 2. Right?
You could watch it as a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
You could watch like Halloween 1978, Halloween 2, and Halloween H20 and go, bam, that's the Laurie Strode trilogy, and I'm good to go. With, her appearance in Resurrection is really a cameo just at the end. It shouldn't count any more than like a skit.
Let me read you this little tidbit from the IMDb trivia. It says, the reports that Kevin Williamson's original treatment for H2O included a scene in which Halloween 4 through 6 are acknowledged as being in continuity and canon are completely accurate. The scene did exist and involved a bitchy student at Carrie/Laurie's school giving a class report on the Haddonfield murders and going into great detail about Jamie Lloyd, Danielle Harris, and J.C. Brandy's characters from Halloween 4 through 6. The student talks about Jamie losing her parents in an auto accident, as was the explanation in those sequels for Laurie Strode's absence. In fact, the only reason for Laurie to be in the witness protection program with her son under an assumed name as Carrie Tate at all was because the original story for H2O was conceived like this. with Halloween 4 through 6 in continuity, and Williamson thus being required to create an explanation for Laurie's death in the previous movies. The student's report chronicles Jamie is being hunted and eventually killed by her uncle, Michael Myers. Upon hearing this oral presentation in the classroom, a grief-stricken Carrie, Laurie, then retreats to the restroom and throws up. So that, and then that scene was omitted. So that answers my question of, like, how could her daughter be killed and her not know about it? I mean, wouldn't it have made the news? Like, I guess it doesn't really answer my question. My question still remains: why wouldn't she have heard about her daughter being killed?
Before we answer that question, I feel like we kind of have to recap 4 through 6 in general. The main characters are this daughter character, because Jamie Lee Curtis had left the series. Halloween 3 is not related to Michael Myers, so that's really good. I just watched it, but Halloween 3 is not related. Michael Myers comes back in number 4, chasing Jamie's daughter. Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, and her name is Jamie, and she's a little girl. So he terrorizes a little girl through 2 movies, and then in the next one where she shows up, she's an adult whom he promptly kills because she dies at the beginning of that movie, so that they could make the movie be about other characters, and which I thought was ridiculous because they had spent all this work building up that character, but that happens all the time. Writers kill off other writers' characters. It's just the way it goes down. So anyway, we get now to this. It's 20 years later, Jamie Lee Curtis living under an assumed name, and I was struck by the same thing. I was like, oh, no, wait a minute. She ran away, but she had a baby, and she left the baby behind? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
It still doesn't.
Definitely paints Laurie Strode in a worse light if she has this daughter that she's abandoned.
That she left.
Right, and the movie does retain the continuity that she supposedly died in a car accident because they show that newspaper clipping.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it also maintains the continuity that Dr. Loomis survives the explosion at the hospital.
Yeah.
Because he apparently lived to a older age, being taken care of by the nurse from the first movie, which is kind of neat. But
so I think we really have to say this movie is, despite what we said earlier, this movie is actually in continuity with the other 3. It just so happens that they cut out the scene about it because they didn't want us to ponder that was a shitty thing for Laurie to do, to leave her kid behind.
Especially since she has another kid.
He was better anyway.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a Sophie's Choice type of situation where she was like, he's stronger.
Now, there's no way that she ran with this kid. There's no way she ran with the boy. I think she had the boy later.
No, that's what I'm saying. She has a son, so it's all better.
Right.
Who needs a stupid daughter anyway? You can leave her wherever to get killed by Michael Myers.
Isn't that crazy? I just can't get my head around that. So but I have to admit the evidence points to it. So we can only assume that if you asked her about it, she would say it was one of those things that she's most ashamed of, because it doesn't. She seems like a good character, but that's a bad thing. So we just
who's raising this child in the other movies?
The child is raised by a foster mother.
And is her name different? I mean, is her name changed?
Which, by the way, if that's the continuity that she ran away, it's even worse because she finds out that she was raised by foster parents in 2. So double crappy. Way to go.
That's true.
Cycle.
Yeah.
I guess that shows that the cycle cannot be broken.
No, but I don't think that she would say that was a bad thing. I think she's okay with it because of the fact that it's better than the reality of knowing that her brother.
Find out about all
she's
that.
pretty upset that her brother killed her family. I don't think she's upset that she wasn't raised with that name anymore because she understands that.
Also,
but,
Laurie doesn't have crazy.
Here's the thing: most of the time, you're like, "Wow, why was I never told I was adopted?" And so the reaction to that is, "Screw you, daughter! I'm gonna go into witness protection and have a son." Boop-a-doo.
Yeah.
It is really strange. It's really strange. And
that's the least of how stupid this movie is.
But does Jamie have the same name, or does she have a different name as her mom?
Does anybody remember?
Laurie Strode isn't really even Laurie Strode's real name if you're going to get down to brass tacks.
Right.
Laurie
so
Myers.
my question is Jamie here? I'll find it.
No, I can just look in the Halloween wiki.
It doesn't.
I'm just curious
how
she was raised.
the part 2 crap was put in there just because as well.
Jamie Lloyd is her name.
Yeah. So she doesn't have the same name as her. And so I mean, I guess thought, she'll be safe. Maybe she figured I'm the real target. If he doesn't know I have a daughter, maybe it's like a Princess Leia type of situation. If he doesn't know I have a daughter, the daughter is safe with whatever family is raising her, as long as her name's not the same as mine. And that way, if he finds me, at least she's okay.
Because that protected her so well.
Right.
Well, I'm just saying.
By the way, for what it's worth, it didn't work out. Jamie Lloyd had a psychic connection with. Listen, these movies.
Oh,
okay?
God. Like, going over. Like, these are the reasons why I don't watch those sequels. Like, I like to ignore them because they're so bad.
I watched them all together. Jamie Lloyd, little girl, psychic connection with her uncle. She can tell when he's on the way and when he's killing people. And then eventually Michael gets caught, but then the man in black frees Michael, and Jamie grows up in a high-security medical ward where she has a baby that they're going to sacrifice to the Cult of Thorn, and Michael is like their avenger, but he goes crazy. There's Paul Rudd with a weird accent. I don't know what that's about. So that's Halloween 4, 5, and 6 in like 15
Which
seconds.
Which still makes me wish that now, like, I would trade all of those for the serial killer supernatural road trip movie. I feel like I would trade all of that for that movie. Like, I wish that time and space healed itself and made that movie instead, because at least it would make just as much sense and would probably be more entertaining.
There's an alternate conspiracy that's brought up in the chat room where Darren suggests, maybe a story happened where Laurie thought that Jamie was dead. Hey, as long as all this stuff happened off screen, we can just imagine anything.
I know. I have a friend that wrote a Halloween comic series, and I never read it. I'm sorry, Tim, but I'm gonna have to go check it out and see if he runs with it. He's a big Halloween fan. He's a bigger Halloween fan than me, and I'm gonna have to see if he runs with any similar thoughts that we're kicking around here.
I'm sure he just completely ignores it all. I mean, and just says, you know what? We're going back to the shape who hunts babysitters, and that's all it is. No connection. But this movie is all about being the third part of Laurie Strode. So yes, what we've just done is discussed all this stuff that then is not discussed in the movie. Laurie has gone from being a sort of nice tan skirt wearing girl from Illinois and is now in like Napa Valley as the headmistress of a really posh private school that is like behind, walls. It's full on Latin America style where there's a guardhouse and there's giant walls and the kids aren't allowed to leave unless they're signed out. It's,
they have those communities here in the United States as well.
I agree. We have some right around the corner. However, I just kind of I have to think, like if you're a 16-year-old, you can leave your gated community without having to be signed. I hope. I really have no idea.
No, but I mean the whole point of it is like it's there's a lot of schools like that where you don't you're supposed to check in and check out because it's supposed to be roaming the city.
All true. I'm just saying that this is not the world that Laurie Strode grew up in.
Yeah.
This is a world though that she's chosen because it fits her need for for high school.
So out of curiosity, now since we've talked continuity, did I miss or did they ever explain? They just go, where has he been these 20 years? And everybody's like, Is that pretty much? Am I remembering that?
No, they do not explain where he has been for 20 years.
Because he does, at the beginning, he's obviously found where Loomis was. He's tracked down the nurse, and he's, he trashes her office and searches for where Laurie is supposed to be. Then kills somebody randomly just because, why not?
Maybe he's
and by the way, we have two stupid, really, really dumb teenagers. In fact, I would say that all of the teenagers and most everybody in this movie is pretty stupid.
Maybe he's been in a coma recovering from the horrible burn.
Complaining about dumb teenagers in a slasher movie is sort of like complaining that...
No, I understand. This is horror movie logic. I realize this. But in general, man, they're stupider than most.
Wait, I wanted to hear
is
what the simile was going to be.
Well,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets killed by Michael Myers. I think that's the thing we gotta take a moment.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny that right after he gets killed and they have the credits and he's in the opening credits, and I was like, can you be in opening credits if you got killed before the opening credits?
Yeah,
apparently you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Rob.
Well, I mean, Christopher Lee is in the credits for Sleepy Hollow, and he's in the movie for like a minute.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, but Christopher Lee is a big name. I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt
was TV. He was TV's George. He was Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah.
Girls thought he was dreamy.
Sure. He is.
He is pretty awesome, actually. He's really good.
I got no complaints about Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Jamie has let it known that she will leave me for him if the opportunity comes. Oh yeah. So,
yeah.
He's on.
I was happy to see him dispatched.
I loved that whole sequence. I have to say, the entire sequence. Yes, where Levitt gets killed, but I like that whole thing where we open up the movie and we start first of all in a place. I know it's California again, but it really looks very fallish. They've gotten a lot better at dressing up the sets. There's a lot more money that's on the screen, right? And and we start out with the nurse from Halloween 1 and 2, and she looks great, and she's playing the same character. And I have to say, I love the whole first sequence, the whole first 20 minutes or so. Up and through the opening credits. I love that whole thing. With Michael up to his old tricks, and Michael is popping up, and it's all about it's been 20 years, and he's gotten into these files and all that stuff. That was just great. I really was like just jumping in my seat with excitement about how awesome it was.
Well, the other nice thing about this sequence, we've talked a lot about the Friday the 13th movies throughout doing these movies. This really sets apart how Michael Myers is different than Jason, is that Jason is mentally still a child.
Yeah.
Michael Myers is intelligent enough to hunt somebody down, dig up files on, do essentially detective work.
Yes.
And I love that about those characters.
I am so curious what his life is like when he's not wearing the mask and hunting people. Like, does he take off the mask, and is he just like this scarred person running around, and people just are like, that guy's creepy looking, but
there are jobs that Michael Myers could do just fine. Michael Myers could be an orderly just fine. He's been in a hospital his whole life. He knows how those guys work. I'll bet you that he could blend in with them.
Right, but does he have like terrible burn scars? Do people like think of him as that weird burn guy? Or?
I'm sure he does, and that would cause people to leave him alone, which probably suits him. Yeah. I'm just saying that if I'm Michael Myers and I have to disappear for 20 years, I'd go back into the hospital system. It'll also enable him to continue his detective work in figuring out where the hell Laurie Strode went.
I like to think he maybe collects stamps or wacky packages or something.
He probably does something that is very methodical like that. I mean, it would fit his personality.
Lots of
you're
right. Does he listen to the radio or does he just drive? What is Michael Myers like?
He just drives around. Remember that time I wasn't burned? Man, that was awesome.
That was awesome. I was still a lunatic. Speaking of Michael, Michael shows up in this first scene, and we see him with that mask. How do we like the mask in this movie?
It looks a little different.
You see more of his eyes, and that's always weird to me. A lot more. In fact, they even do a thing where they show somebody's reflection in his eyes, which for the most part previously has been black.
Right.
I don't really dig it, but whatever.
I've heard a story. I've heard a story that they eventually had to change up the mask a little bit because William Shatner started to ask for money. I've always wondered if that's true or not.
I've never seen that in any of the trivia. They basically were just like, well, the mask was all beat up, and then we changed it, and then we changed some of it back, and they used CG to change it. And this one, I don't know, man.
Here's what I heard. And by the way, the mask in Halloween 4 is 1,000 times worse than this mask. So Halloween 2 used literally the same latex mask, literally the same piece of material that was worn in the first movie. But the actor is a different shape, so the mask had a more it appeared more sort of oval in shape because the guy's head was more oval, and so it was just a different actor. Although, like, 4 different people wore the mask at various times in the first movie. The third movie, there's no Michael. Fourth movie, they made a whole new mask because they tried to find the old one, and enough years had been passed by that thing had just literally disintegrated. It wasn't any good. So they made a new one, but they rejected. Now, it's possible that this had to do with politics and not wanting to pay William Shatner or whatever. Regardless, they rejected using the old William Shatner mask, so they built something from scratch. The Halloween 4 mask looks stupid. It is awful. Halloween 5, I can't remember. I think it's the same one as Halloween 4. The Halloween 6 mask looks great. This mask is an utterly different mask. In this mask in Halloween 7, they're really trying to make you aware of the actor inside of it, which is why the eyes are so big. And that's going to play an important role at the very end, because a lot of whether or not she decides, what she's going to do with Michael depends on whether she can read his eyes. So his eyes have to be visible. That's in a whole new, and it also makes Michael more human, which is all deliberate, whether we agree with it or not. That's what's going on.
Boo.
Yeah.
from me.
Having said that, I like the mask. His eyes aren't always visible because they're usually behind that thing. I like the look of this mask. It's creepy, scary. I like the idea that Michael Myers is like Batman in a sense, that you can have many, many variations on this mask and you still can tell that that's a Michael Myers.
Yeah, that is
mask.
cool. One of the things I really hated about this movie, too, is the jump scare sound thing. Like, no matter what, it's the cheapest, cheesiest.
Yeah. Somebody's just going to tap you on the shoulder and you go, what's the sound effect in this one? It's like
it's just like an orchestra hit. It's like the cheapest, lowest common denominator orchestra hit. Wow. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it was worse in number 6. In number 6, it was literally it was like a cymbal crash. It's like a
Yeah, but was it every 5 minutes, or was it anybody whoever it made me want to go back and just make a YouTube video of just every time somebody looks at somebody else, it goes wong. Because everybody surprises everybody with everything in this movie. There's not one time somebody can come into a room where somebody else is, and it goes wonk. Hey, by the way, did it scare you? It's like
it took forever for this movie to really be a horror movie. It really just was a lot of people just kind of jumping and being like, whoa, what happened? Aside from, of course, from the opening. But but after the opening, it's takes a long time before anything real happens, and it's mostly just,
That's kind of the way the first one is.
Yes.
but the first one, no.
About that.
The first one.
I'm not saying it's as good. I'm just saying I think that was a deliberate attempt to copy the first one.
No, because the first one you actually have Michael just being in the background constantly. You're always seeing him, and in this one, it's like you don't see him for a good long time while we watch Jamie Lee Curtis running around doing her school business.
Well, that's true, but I agree with Drew in the timing sense that this movie is making a deliberate attempt. Now, you're right that they forget something powerful right there that I didn't even think about, but they're making an attempt to structure it the way the first one was structured, where there'd be a lot of character stuff, character, and then everybody starts getting killed at the end. But yeah, in the first one, Michael shows up more or less right away. Here he takes a long time. But you know what? We're kind of overpainting that because the fact is, Michael's around. There's the business of
except
Michael.
For 90% of the jump sounds have nothing to do with Michael Myers. That's what I'm saying. Anytime anybody just ate at me, man. If this wasn't the Halloween franchise, I guarantee you wouldn't give it the same kind of reverence, because it's tons of lesser movies or cheaper movies or not this franchise movies. People go, jump scares, geez, that's the cheapest. And this one is a constant. No one can look at anyone else or if anything's over anybody's shoulder without hearing that stupid sound and going,
I agree.
And 90% of them have nothing to do with Michael Myers. That's the worst. It's oh man.
Okay, so in fact, while we're at the school, we should mention we meet We meet Josh Hartnett, who is her long-suffering young adult son, who lives with her and is, I guess, going to go to college soon, and is aware that she is.
Well, and he's decided to choose the 20th anniversary of all this horror to be all independent and be like,
right.
yeah, Mom, I'm
and to say I'm going on a camping trip. But I have to say, yeah, this is the key to the plot, is that he wants to go on the school camping trip, which is the enormous plot device to get everybody but the main characters off the campus. So everybody's going on a camping trip, but he wants to go, but she doesn't want him to go. And I have to say, by the way, that's nuts. If your senior child wants to go on the school camping trip and you're too traumatized by your own problems of 20 years ago to let him go, you are ruining your child's life, at least in the fictional world.
She
not
is.
condemning anybody actually listening who might feel it.
She's damaged. I mean, she's damaged goods.
Yeah.
I mean, he even calls her a functional alcoholic, which she is.
Yes.
Well, he always calls her out on. He does tell her, "You're ruining this for you're ruining me," which is actually pretty good. Although I
find this relationship, while it's probably not the best, I mean, I wouldn't want to. I'm not saying Laurie Strode should win Mother of the Year or anything, but I mean, it is a completely believable codependent relationship.
And to be honest, it's kind of wonderful. She's kind of great. She does love him. They're fun to watch. I mean, I really enjoyed seeing a horror movie about this mother and son. That was kind of neat.
I wish that it was. Because of the way that the school kids are portrayed, I do wish that the bus was going to Camp Crystal Lake.
But Camp Crystal Lake is in New Jersey. That's a bit of a drive.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just send them to Camp Crystal Lake or a sleepaway camp. Any of those, I wish that all of the people there in those buses was going to one of those places.
What's the one where they all get killed?
Whatever.
And it was all a big joke, and they're all still alive. Is that April Fool's?
Oh, yeah.
If I just spoiled the ending of April Fool's for anybody, I really apologize.
Yeah,
so.
I just wish that the buses were going somewhere like that. To the cabin in the woods, that would be fine, too.
But you just pointed out a really interesting flaw here with this movie. It's okay if we think of it in terms of this being the three-part story of Laurie and Michael, two siblings with some problems. But the first movie is all about the resilience of teenagers, likable, wonderful teenagers with their own problems, but they're smart and they can
I don't know
be
about
clever.
smart.
And Laurie is really smart and really great. And in this one, who's our focus? It's still Laurie. And are there any teens that are like Laurie? Maybe Josh Hartnett is like Laurie, maybe, but really he's not the hero. The hero is still Laurie. In other words, it's a band. This is not really the same kind of movie the first one was, because it's a band.
You know what, though? That didn't matter, because I was barely out of high school when this movie came out, and I wanted to see Laurie Strode. Seeing Laurie Strode in a movie was a big deal to all the horror fans that were in my peer group. This movie was a big deal to all the horror fans. Yeah. And she's a middle-aged woman. I didn't care. She is the final girl. You want to see her. And, they work Josh Hartnett into it. I mean, he is kind of the MacGuffin for the reason why Michael Myers is going on this rampage.
That's right.
He's 17 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, supposedly she works out a theory that's just there really to propel the plot and kind of make it make sense for us, is that Judith was 17, that's Laurie's older sister. Laurie was 17 when he came after her, and now Johnny's 17. And so in theory, he's, quit his job doing whatever it is, ticket taker at the Hollywood studios, and he's come and put the mask back on and come to kill him.
I don't think they would let that guy take tickets anywhere.
Maybe he's a character at Disney World.
Scare people.
We don't know what he does.
He's Crazy Ralph. He does live in Crystal Lake when he's not being the shape. He's Crazy Ralph. He's Jason's wingman.
It's Camp Blood, don't you know? Oh man, I love that guy. I love that crazy dude at the end of the road. Okay, so when Michael,
maybe it's Torgo.
Oh yeah, who are the other characters? Josh Hartnett.
I said maybe he's Torgo.
Yes. No, you're right. He could just be hanging out with the master. There's a small set of other characters who are around. There are two couples. There's Josh Hartnett and his girlfriend, the blonde from Dawson's Creek. I don't even know what her name is. That's just who she is to me.
Oh, what's it? Michelle Williams.
Okay, rock on.
Yeah,
and there's
Mrs. Heath Ledger.
Okay, Little Man Tate and his brunette girlfriend, differentiated from the Dawson's Creek girl. You can see how much attention I paid to these people. And
hey, I like that kid. He's a chubby chaser. He's a relatable thing. You know, it's cool. Too bad he dies, but you know, hey.
I like Little Man Tate. He's all right. I got no problem.
He's smart. He's smart, but he's smart in a way that, you know, in a horror movie, you know, he's going to die because the smart kid has to die.
That's right. He's clever, and basically you've got the sort of the classier pair, which is Hartnett and his girlfriend, and the funnier, raunchier, cleverer pair, which is you know, I keep calling Little Man Tate.
You know, they're the ones that actually probably would have stayed married too. I think,
yes.
You know, just Hartnett and Blondie Bear, I don't think would have gone the distance.
I don't have much faith.
I know it's horror movie logic, but it's hard to call somebody smart who can't like reach a spoon into a disposal instead of putting their hand into the disposal.
Let's talk about how he gets it, because basically what happens is Michael ends up finally coming to the school and getting in by ninja-like walking past LL Cool J, who is...
Oh, the LL Cool J character
hangs out. Like, again, every time LL Cool J turns around, he's like, whoop. And then he turns around and whoop. It's like a Spider-Man villain from Electric Company.
Yeah.
I love the fact that LL Cool J as the security guard, having worked as a security guard, is so beneath Michael Myers' attention that he's not even going to attempt to kill him. He's just going to walk past him and go on his rampage.
An interesting point. In this movie, Michael Myers is not interested in killing children. He's not interested in killing security guards. He's not interested in killing random moms. That was funny. He left that mom alive back at the bathroom stall. Whereas in 4, 5, and 6, he literally he's like a lawnmower. He just sort of literally kills anybody who like gets in front of him, you know. And this is...
Well, I really do feel like that was them trying to imitate the Friday the 13th movies, because Jason pretty much, with the possible exception of small children, Jason pretty much kills literally everybody in his path.
Right.
See, this is actually Darren and I in the chat room. Like, to me, this is another thing that bugs me personally about the movie, is it feels like it's trying to do a lot of things like, oh, this is what a horror movie is. You guys like this stuff. And it doesn't commit to being its own thing. Like, I feel like it has a lot of callbacks to, like, see, guys, I make horror. Here's the horror movie. And, like, it doesn't, to me, personally, and again, I'm in the minority here, it seems like.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's just like a pastiche of a lot of things that are that
but what horror movies
and it
don't
comes
do
out
that?
After Scream, you know?
How many horror movies don't do that?
You have a chance to, but it's Halloween. And not only that, it's a direct sequel. You have a chance.
I feel like this
like,
feels more like this is a better sequel to the first one than just about any of them. And again, not saying it's as good. Yeah, not even saying that it's as good as Halloween. Nothing as good as Halloween. And as far as the seeming, like, you know, it has all that, like, occasional meta stuff and, you know, the pastiche stuff, that's the influence of Kevin Williamson in there. At least we forget, this has a pretty good horror pedigree. You know, Kevin Williamson, who wrote the Scream movies, wrote this. Steve Miner is the director, and Steve Miner did some of the better Friday the 13th.
Yeah, well, maybe that's it. Maybe, personally. I mean, it's a horror movie. It's good for a horror movie. Yeah. I don't know if I want it to be more, or the fact that I don't want Halloween to be Scream.
Right.
And I think that's probably
you're talking about sucking out some of the funny.
Like, it's not Scream. It's like it's what we have, and maybe you can't. Maybe it's impossible. You know, maybe it's impossible that, say, a new Godzilla movie we can't view it in the same way, right? Because we've seen, like, there's an entire kaiju thing. There's, you know, it's not.
But
the same.
we have on the show. We have seen a movie like that, Tony.
Right.
And that's that we watched House of the Devil, which was a rock-solid recreation of a 1970s horror film without
But
any
for some reason, like, I think, Drew, you hit upon it. Like, yeah, this is the guy who made Scream. Okay, that is not what I wanted to see.
But I will also say this: movies exist in the flavor of their time, and you can't take. It's like, I like the 1930s King Kong. It's one of my favorite movies. I also like the Peter Jackson King Kong. I don't expect it to have the exact same vibe, even though it's got obviously a very reverent incarnation of King Kong. This is very respectful of the original Halloween, but it is a movie of its time period.
Well,
and I'm okay with that.
When you think about it, the 90s really, in my mind, kind of kicks off, really, in terms of this stuff, with Pulp Fiction. So you got that Tarantinoization of everything. Everybody wants to figure out a way to have their characters sort of constantly jabber in pop culture references and meta cleverness. I'm not knocking it. I think Pulp Fiction is brilliant. I think Scream was actually really clever, but everything was like that. So yeah, there is a certain flavor to this, and in fact, I'll bet you that if you made a movie that tried to recapture the earnestness of the 50s and 60s, then it might fail, because people might be like, this isn't speaking to me in quite the voice that I'm accustomed to. But I don't really know.
This movie was successful, and I think one of the reasons it was successful is that it's not like a slavish recreation like something like House of the Devil. I love House of the Devil, but that is not going to appeal to everybody. A movie that's like this was a tentpole movie. This was a movie. It's not show art. It's show business.
Yeah, can you imagine, Drew, if in fact this movie had done what Castle of the Dead does and tried to make the film, for instance, look grainy and 70s-ish? And
I would have loved that, but I don't think that would have made as much money as H20 did.
Also, I'm not saying you have to be slavish to it. What I think in talking through it is that I'm reacting to, like, it does feel like it feels, I don't know. I guess it's on me. It just feels like everything I had seen not too long ago, and didn't really, like, I don't know. Maybe it can't feel new. I'm not sure. But
I think if you're looking at a movie that was built to be a 20th anniversary celebration of another movie, so it's not going to feel new.
That's interesting.
Right.
Well,
so let's talk a little bit
about. Maybe I'm not. I'm probably just not expressing it right. But
no, and Tony, you could even express it perfectly, and we could still have, we have.
But I really think like it just. I don't know. This movie was definitely not for me, and I remember
you feel like it's a lost opportunity. Like
I think so. I mean, you've got like when you say you were excited to see Jamie Lee Curtis again, I totally agree, and I was too. And I remember the first time I was like, oh, I guess that was an okay horror movie. And this time I was just like I was ready to revisit. I was actually psyched and came away just, I don't really have to see this movie again, including up until the ending. Oh man, just.
Well, let's. So yeah, I was gonna say let's talk about the actual plot a little bit as to the showdown part where.
Sure.
Yeah.
Basically people start getting killed and he's running around and the kids have all the kids have left the campus except her son and his buddy and their girlfriends have stayed behind, unbeknownst to mom. And so, but then she figures it out that he's around and also that Michael's around, and so everything starts to go crazy and people are dying and whatever. Anyway, so the thing is, she's able to get away with her son and his girlfriend, and the other kids have died. The other people have died, and so she's driving them out, and suddenly goes, "No, I'm going to stay here. You guys go ahead. Go on down the street to the neighbors, like you did in the first movie."
With all respect, I think you're painting this. Can I tell you my fanboy perception?
No, but I'm not done. So anyway, so she does that, and then she goes back in to be all, oh my God, that scared me. I'm scared. No, I hear noises when I'm talking about horror movies. It scares the crap out of me. Anyway, so she is going to take. She's going to come back on she's going to come back to go finish the job because she feels like this will never be over unless she kills him, and she's the only one who knows that he's not going to die easily. So she's going to go back and finish this because otherwise it's going to go on forever. He's going to kill other people. He's going to keep going after her. And so, I mean, I think it's very brave and cool, and I think it needed to be done. I just think it's kind of funny. That she's like, I'm going to go, I'm just going to go back all by myself with my axe.
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. The whole, I might agree with Tony about most of the prior 45 minutes after the initial 20, and then we were like on Dawson's Creek for like 45 minutes. Very special episode about Dawson's PTSD mom. And now all of a sudden, now it's the last act, and all of a sudden here the movie really begins because Laurie locks herself into an enormous fortress, basically, with Michael and an axe, and starts stalking the streets looking for Michael Myers. That's awesome. I mean, if you think of that as like the third act in a very long movie that begins with Halloween 1978, this is cool.
Or she's like a pissed off big sister. Michael.
Yes, she's wonderful.
Well, it's her Linda Hamilton.
Yeah,
really.
She's totally Linda Hamilton out too. She's like totally cut, and she's ready to like wield this axe and pull all kinds of Michael Myers shit. And Michael Myers has gotten stronger too. He's doing total like Mitch Gaylord stuff, lifting himself up, onto iron bars and lowering yourself.
I love that Mitch Gaylord is who you come up with.
That's my go-to name for lifting.
Strong gymnast.
Apparently,
I'm sure Drew's going, who the hell's Mitch Gaylord?
I know.
I agree that
I'm not that young, okay?
Yeah, I agree. At first I was like, really? She just, hey, you go along. And then I really did she's like, all right, well, time to take care of business. This has to end tonight. You know, I have to protect my son.
Right.
All right, this has to go down this way. And that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I would have liked to have seen more of that sooner, perhaps.
So they keep her from the cops or whoever. Who stops her from cutting off his head? LL Cool J, who earlier had appeared to have been mortally wounded by Adam Arkin, who is not mentioned yet by us, but Laurie's boyfriend who dies. Anyway, he accidentally shoots LL, and we think LL Cool J is dead too. But LL turns out to be alive. At one point where Laurie throws Michael over a ledge and he falls to his unconsciousness, LL goes, he's dead, let's call the cops. And so that's what happens. That's why she doesn't chop off his head in the cafeteria. And somebody mentioned, Tony, even you were acknowledging in the chat room that this is a very cool scene. The cafeteria scene.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, they're playing cat and mouse. It's a lot of almost Steven Spielberg-like business where she's rolling underneath tables and he's walking on top of the tables and everything. This is
there's that great point where he just starts literally throwing the tables.
Yeah, that was awesome.
He shoots something mad.
I want to see more of that, where he's like, "This is enough. He just starts throwing crap everywhere." But
I'm
that's
so
the guy. I'm
fascinated
like,
by
oh
Michael.
man, because he's that's one thing that makes him kind of different too, is the way that he operates.
Yeah.
It, is different than other slashers in general. I mean, they've often been copied, but
Say more about that,
awesome.
Tony. What do you mean by that? The way that Michael operates is different.
Well, again, like we've talked about, the detective work kind of stuff, and the way, he plays cat and mouse when it's done really well. He's coming out of the darkness and he's doing things. And in this one, he I can't say that he he even makes a new tableau with he hangs a girl and makes a lamp inside her.
Yes,
he's just which is alternately just really stupid, but no less I'm well, I guess he did it in the first one. He made a whole he's hauled around a tombstone.
Yeah,
check this out.
Michael, as
he'll do shit like that. And that's I'll give it up for. That's pretty crazy. He doesn't do it a lot. In this one, I think that it was kind of more, hey, look how crazy this will be, than actually feasible or doable. But you know,
he does seem to enjoy making odd life-size dioramas.
He's an artist. He's an artist.
He goes, yes.
Yeah,
An artiste.
and
Well, Michael-
you know, he's also super, like, the way he's super strong, and the way, like, when he decides, like, all right, I'm going to chase whatever my prey is down, and he starts to exhibit that. It's, you know, that's pretty rad. And
What
so
was-
that
what were you
scene
gonna
in
say, Drew?
particular was really cool.
Well, Michael Myers, as I said in the last one, both Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees are somewhat based on Leatherface, and
Sure.
the difference between Michael Myers, between Jason and Leatherface, again, is that he has this diabolical intelligence that almost reminds me of Christopher Lee as Dracula. Like it's this. You can see him working things out in his body language, even though there is an absence of him speaking. You know, the body language. There's this thought process there, which is
Right.
very interesting. And
yeah, he can be
you know,
fooled. For instance, you know, he's not magic. To at least here, you know, in this sense, he's not magic. He can be tricked. He can see something and be distracted with shadows. He can.
Well, he's not omnipotent like Freddy Krueger or Pinhead.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and he lacks Pinhead. Pinhead's such a fascinating counterpoint to this, because Pinhead has that genteel sort of reserve. You know, evil and violent though he is, Pinhead makes jokes all the time and is really reserved. Freddy Krueger makes really crude jokes all the time, you know, and is very active. And Michael is extraordinarily active but completely silent, you know. But
well, you know, it's a funny, you know, they were going to do, you know, when they were the sort of rebirth of the Monster Rally after Freddy versus Jason, there was talk of having Pinhead versus Michael Myers, and this is seriously considered, and I kind of wonder what that would have been like.
I don't know, man. That's kind of oil and water to me. But I mean, somebody I'm sure could do it well. It would. I would have to see the final product before I could decide if that was a good idea.
I would have liked to see if they actually somehow could have finagled Clive Barker into actually directing it, because he so rarely directs anything anymore. I actually would have liked to have seen what a Clive Barker Halloween movie would be like, just because I think that would have
totally
been.
Watch that. That would be awesome.
Clive Barker Halloween. Oh Lord! Now you're making me wish that they had hired Clive Barker to make the 2007 remake instead of Rob Zombie. You know, I don't know.
Much less rednecks, much more S&M.
That's
Clive
absolutely
Barker Freddy movie would be, I think, even better.
Well,
oh yes.
You know, I was just actually thinking about Clive Barker and Hellraiser and forgot that actually was Clive Barker, so I apologize. Okay.
So then at the end, to continue the plot.
Thank you for leading us towards the end of the movie. So at the end, skinny bit, brother. We get to the end, and basically the whole schmear ends with Laurie and Michael in a van wreck, in an ambulance wreck.
Well, because what I was going to say was, when LL Cool J stops her from beheading him at that point, it looks like Michael's dead. So they put him in his little body bag, and they put him in his ambulance. But we don't see the part where he gets put in the body bag. And so he goes into the ambulance, and she takes a gun from one of the cops and hijacks the ambulance and takes off with him, and with an axe and a gun. And so then she's watching in the rearview mirror, and she sees, waiting for him to wake up, and sure enough he does. He gets up, and so then she wrecks the van, throwing him out the window, and then drives into him, pinning him between a tree and the van, something like that. Anyway, or maybe that happens in the accident, I can't remember. And so she's injured, but she's not pinned to a tree.
Right.
And so then she comes up, and there's this poignant moment where he reaches toward her, and she reaches toward him.
Now take your time on this, because this is really, really cool. First, he's just laying there like maybe he's dead, but that's just how he rolls. And I love this. This is actually, even Tony must admit, this whole business here is really cool, because she calls his name, and she goes, Michael, and he wakes up, and the first thing he does is check his mask. Isn't that the coolest thing? I mean, he sort of jerks awake. He's pinned to this tree, and he touches his face with his hands to make sure that his mask is still on. This poor, twisted motherfucker.
Which is why that
No,
scene
see, man, here's the thing. Here's
Yeah.
why this is where I disagree. I, again, think this is the dumbest idea for, like, she can't drive and ends up driving herself off of a cliff, which is stupid. B, if you read the trivia, the reason they did this is because they actually wanted it to be, like, they wanted to swap it out, and they do this in Halloween Resurrection. He's actually not Michael Myers.
Yeah. But I don't accept that. I do not accept that Halloween Resurrection exists. Stupid.
All of this leading to her running off the cliff, which throws her out. So instead, she's got a son that she's defending, and yet has no problems driving off a cliff, even if it's accidentally. Like, all of this is dumb. So then, in my opinion. So then,
you can say that all you want about however them wanting to leave a back door, and I'm sure that is true.
But it doesn't work. It doesn't work because if that guy, okay. In the next movie, apparently he swapped himself out for one of the paramedics. If that were the case, then he would have tied the hand somehow, and the guy wouldn't, because the guy has his hands available, so he could have taken the mask off, taken the tape off his mouth, whatever.
And he also would have said, "Hey, I'm not Michael Myers."
Right,
please don't kill me. I'm not Michael Myers. He never talks in this.
But again, that is if you acknowledge that movie exists, which I'm with Jason. I don't.
But it still doesn't, even if that movie exists, it still doesn't mean, like, the ending, like, this whole, the van goes off, all that stuff. And
people who are pushed to extremes will do crazy things. I find everything she's doing is completely believable.
Okay, but go back to the really cool scene that Tony is not digging the magic of.
He reaches for her.
Yes.
Michael Myers, the most evil thing, the thing that Loomis forever, like, so
he has the blackest eyes, like, the devil's eyes.
So
his father's eyes.
I guess what we're supposed to say is he finally has repented.
No,
maybe that's the crux.
No, that's not what I see at all.
But why would he not reach for her throat instead?
No. He's going to reach for her so that he can kill her, so that he can get her. Like, I don't think he's I think he's trying to play her.
I know, but
and he's going, come over to me, and then he's going to grab her and try to kill her.
But Tony's point
is, they don't play it that way.
Tony's point is that we're supposed to be fooled for a moment. That Michael, for some reason, in a moment of insane tenderness.
No. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I'm not sure. Like, I think he should be toying with her, but I think it's really muddled. Like, maybe, I don't know. I didn't write Scream, and I'm not a millionaire because of that. But to me, and maybe I never will be. All apologies to the director. I'm just on a podcast, but.
Right.
Like, if you really want to sell that this is Michael freaking Myers, he reaches and makes a hand like, I'm going to grab your throat or something. Like, none of that, like, we see more of his eyes.
But Tony, here's how I read this, though. I see it, he reaches out a hand that's a very neutral hand, and she, for a moment, is like, I think it's possible she's thinking, I'm going to cut your head off, or I'm not going to cut your head off. Probably thinking, I am going to cut your head off, but regardless, I'm maybe going to touch your hand first because you're my brother. But then she looks in his eyes, and this is where the mask pays off. And I think the eyes tell her, I'm not going to trust this guy. And
I think so, too. I think that she wants to believe that he has some goodness in her, but then she realizes that's goodness in him. But then she realizes that she's just kidding herself, and then she goes and lops off his head.
I agree with you that that's how it plays out. To me, like, it doesn't. I wasn't sold either way, and I think that's my problem with the movie, in my opinion.
Yes, it's a totally valid opinion.
Is that it never commits. In my opinion, Like, and
okay,
but
the movie ends with Laurie Strode lopping off Michael Myers' head,
and they
should have never made another single Halloween movie.
Yeah,
that should have been the end of it. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I would have even been okay. I could have even excused the reboots because they're their own continuity, but this is such a Halloween Resurrection was. On top of that, like whatever you think about this movie, Halloween Resurrection is a cinematic abortion. It's so terrible, and I
haven't even seen it. I refuse. Like, when I found out about it, I was just like, never mind.
I wanted to I didn't see it when it came out.
Of the Halloween series, basically, that it undoes stuff that's should have been left alone.
Yeah, I heard about it, and I was like, well, no. I had no interest in seeing anything.
Well, I just like kill Laurie Strode. You've completely missed the point. No.
Yeah.
But remember, you said something a while back, and I think it was a quote from somebody else, which is that we watch a lot of horror movies, and actually, this is a genre that doesn't treat us very well. That you watch a lot of stuff that's not very good to get to the ones that are good, and you have to just sort of essentially whitewash your mind of the stuff that wasn't worth your time.
I wish I could. I wish that I could somehow scramble Halloween Resurrection out of. Like, I have contempt for that movie. It's not even just that they kill Laurie Strode in the opening credits. It's just everything. It never gets any better.
That's why I think it's a dream. I think that you could have woken up from. I think Laurie could have woken up from Halloween 8, and Halloween 7 was a bad dream. Because
maybe it's Michael Myers as the blood leaks out of Michael Myers' neck. It's his death dream.
Yes, that's right. This is all. Yeah, you can understand that movie as being the dream of Michael Myers. Absolutely, because I know he gets away at the end of that movie as well. But and we know that that's totally fair because this series plays fast and loose with continuity all the time anyway. It's we're kidding ourselves that anybody's paying as much attention to it.
But if you call yourself I just have a hard time saying, if you are in any way, shape, or form a fan of the Halloween, how can you say that Laurie Strode chopping off Michael Myers' head is not a perfect end to that character? And I've had arguments with people who and they come in. I guess it all comes into who you're relating to, and there's the people that are just like tried and true fans of the Michael Myers character, and they don't want to see him deceased in any way, shape, or form. But he's a movie character, and he comes back anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
no, the end. I will have to say the end is that scene, that her cutting off his head, like looking at him, like, all right, well, this is what I had to do, which is what she wanted to do. That is awesome. And in fact, to be honest with you, in retrospect, I think there's about 30 minutes in the hour and a half that this is, I think there's about 30 minutes of a horror movie that I really like. Yeah. And, maybe that's me. I want the other 60 minutes. Also, son of a gun, it ends on a Creed song. Good grief.
That's pretty bad.
Totally just, like, I was already like, man, okay, enough of this movie. And then Creed comes on.
Creed. God.
Wow, that would have been more awesome if he would just pull his mask off and just started going, I'm sorry I stabbed you and your friends.
But I didn't hear any of that.
That's it. He's not Michael Myers, when he's not the Shape, he's the lead singer of Creed.
That would be awesome. By the way,
that's when he's truly evil.
If sometime not on the podcast,
maybe he's Lemmy, and most
of
the time he's like in Germany or whatever, and that's the reason why he only shows up every 15 years. Lemmy,
Oh no! Don't dishonor. Don't. No. Creed you can mess with. Then
Lemmy would never cover up his righteous mustache with a mask. Okay, come on.
But man, sometime not on the podcast. Remind me to tell you guys. The lead singer of the Flaming Lips had the best Creed story I've ever heard in my life, and I need to tell you guys sometime.
You should have posted on the Facebook page.
It was really amazing.
Aaron brings up the movie should have, and this is where the it's commercialism. They should have ended on Mr. Sandman, just like
absolutely.
they did Halloween 2.
Because it comes up in the beginning. That would have been awesome.
That's a really good point. You know, Metallica doing Mr. Sandman would have been really funny. But
one thing about but this is backtracking a lot. The one thing about the sort of strain of 90s postmodernism in here that I completely am okay with is the fact that Janet Leigh is in this movie.
That's awesome thank you for mentioning that. That was awesome.
Oh, they even give her a funny line where she's
being maternal.
That's really good.
And she's got the car from Psycho.
I know.
Exactly. No, she totally does. That's so funny.
Again, in retrospect, like I said, there's like 30 minutes of a movie I enjoy, and the rest I was not happy with. But
there we go.
Man, it's weird because I really hate being the negative person.
Okay.
Why do you got to be Debbie Downer, Tony?
Lincoln versus Vampires was like an 8th grade play, so it's we got to have some place where we actually come down.
One day, you and Abraham Lincoln are gonna hug it out. I'm not giving up.
All right,
you're gonna have some vampire. You're gonna have some vampires after you, and you're gonna be like, man, I wish I was better friends with Abraham Lincoln.
Right. He just threw a horse at me. I can feel his pain.
Yeah.
12 years of vampire would be okay. Let us do our final thoughts, and then we will come around for endorsements. So we went. Hey, Julia went first. Julia, what are your final thoughts? Halloween H20 and the end of our Halloween retrospective. Are you counting yourself lucky that you have watched these movies?
No. Not particularly. But then again, I can't say there's a whole bunch of movies that we have watched in this podcast that I've kind of been so lucky to watch. There are a few. And Halloween, the first Halloween is actually probably one of them, because having seen that one again, I don't think I had realized what a brilliant movie it was, because I never liked horror movies, so I just thought of it as a horror movie that I didn't like. But I actually I think it's brilliant. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad we watched that one, and I'm glad we watched these two just highlight how brilliant the first one is, because you have that to compare with. And so, yeah, but I really don't have much else to say what other than what I've already said. So, yeah, that's all.
All right. Who went next? We had, Tony, final thoughts, Halloween H2O.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I guess I'm the negative, and I feel so weird, too. Maybe I shouldn't be wishy-washy. Because on the one hand, like after I cut something up, I always feel like, oh man, lots of people made this movie. I feel bad for cutting this apart, and that's stupid. Just considering you're supposed to talk about your position on horror movies. I mean, I did my column so that I got to review everything I liked, and didn't have to be that guy. So it's weird. I feel like I should apologize. I'm sure some horror movie fans out there will crucify me for how much I hate this movie, or dislike this movie. I think hate's too strong, because there's cool stuff in there.
I'm sure there are movies you despise. If it's a movie that has 30 good minutes, it's not a hate.
It should make you feel better, Tony, that all the people who made this movie were very well compensated for it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. Again, like I said, I dislike this movie. And
hey, even John Carpenter got paid again.
Yeah.
Tony makes a really good point, though. You watch a movie you don't like, and you think, some actress in the background, she's super excited. She's going to watch the movie with her friends. They've left her crappy little apartment, and she's gone to the movie theater with her friends, and she's going to watch it because this is the first movie that she's ever been in, and she's super excited. So for somebody, that's the story for every crappy movie you watch. Isn't that amazing?
And then this stupid podcast, unemployed podcast guy.
Well, that's why you don't listen to podcasts and you don't read reviews of your own movies.
That's true.
I guess so. So those are, I guess, I don't know. It doesn't work for me, and it's one of the few movies I disagree with Drew on, which is really weird. I wanted to like it more than I remembered, and I guess going from meh to just I won't watch this again is where I'm at. So.
Tony, my faith in humanity is rattled.
That's okay. I'm constantly disliking things people like and liking things that people think I'm stupid for liking. So what do I know?
Okay. Did we do Drew? Did we do you? Have we?
I did not. I did not get the same IP.
All right. Do you? Final thoughts.
I like this movie. Like I said, really, there's Halloween 2 in this movie, and honestly, this is the only really good sequel to Halloween, in my opinion. I really, really just have to say, like, with the exception of Halloween 2, I really hate most of the sequels to Halloween. Other than Donald Pleasance, who is always a pleasure to watch, I just don't find too much redeemable about them. This is an exception. This is a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed watching all these movies in the Halloween season. It's definitely made my Halloween this year feel extra Halloweeny. So it was good times.
Yeah. So I feel much the same way. I'm really glad that we watched this series, and I watched the whole series, but I'm glad we watched this trilogy to talk about them, and I feel like it gave shape to my Halloween season, which was worth it. So I didn't even think about that. Oh, okay. Anyway, har.
I just got it after the several seconds.
It takes a moment. That's horror fan pun humor. But
well, and I especially like that you punctuated shape. It gave shape to my Halloween.
That's just the emphatic way of speaking that I have. But
yeah, but it worked well.
Halloween H20. I like this movie because it's all about the third act. Again, like King Kong versus Godzilla. It's talk, so you get to Act 3, and then you have the big showdown. I could sit you down on my couch and I could fast forward through the first hour of the film, just giving you sort of commentary. We could watch the beginning up to the point where the credits roll and Michael's stolen the file, all the way across to the point where Laurie locks herself in with Michael to seek to kill him. Those parts are great. So to me, I recommend this. This is, it is a fun thing to sit down with Halloween 1 and then skip to this, or watch Halloween 2 in the middle and make it a trilogy. So I really like this movie, even for all the problems that we talked about here. So we should go around and do endorsements if we have any endorsements to endorse. I've been reading the same book all week, so I only have one. But let's start with Julia. Did you have any endorsements this week?
No, I'll cede my time to you guys.
Okay. All right. Maybe an endorsement light week. Tony, did you have any endorsements?
Darn. I'm trying to think. I think the only thing I have is very non-horror, and it is the Donnie Yen movie, Dragon, which is on Netflix, which has a very generic title. It was called Wuxia, W-U-X-I-A, originally. And holy moly, that movie is awesome. If you're a Kung Fu fan, that has been my most exciting movie I've seen this week. So.
Oh, we did end up seeing Gravity this week. That was a great film. If you haven't already seen it.
It is. Even friends of mine who hate blockbusters like Gravity.
Yeah.
But Dragon, like I said, it's on Netflix. There's some new horror that came out that I haven't caught yet, so I added a bunch to my queue. But yeah, Donnie Yen's such a great actor, and the way it's told is amazing, and it even ends up being possibly a origin story for a popular Shaw Brothers movie, if you want to see it that way. And so, while not horror, and I apologize for that, I would say see Dragon because it's pretty awesome. Oh, and there is I should post the link. There are a bunch of cool movies coming around different towns. The Fantastic Fest tour, as they're calling it, and they're showing, I want to say 6 or 8 movies that happened at Fantastic Fest, and they're selling tickets to those around places. And I'll post the link for that. There's a pretty mixed bag of cool movies in there, and a lot of good ones that I saw at Fantastic Fest. So that's worth checking out if it comes to your town. Hopefully it's not over. I haven't checked back. But I will, if I can find the link and it's still around, I'll post it because it's a collection of really good curated movies that are pretty awesome. So
Mr. Drew, any endorsements for us?
Yeah, a couple things. One, I wanted to give a shout-out to Bat City Surfers, which is a local band here in Austin. They played a couple of my shows.
What do they play? Is that like beach rock or?
They're like horror-tinged surf rock, or I guess surf punk. And
that rocks. I got to hear this. Okay.
Yeah, they're. It's been fun seeing them progress because I've seen them since they first started out. Just kind of playing in like small dives, and they're still playing clubs around Austin, and they've just gotten better and better and better. And they've actually become one of my favorite local bands. And they played my show this last weekend, and they were just phenomenal. And Joey, the front man of the band, has a small part in Machete Kills, if you haven't seen Machete Kills yet. So, for you Robert Rodriguez fans. The other thing I'm going to plug, although it hardly needs plugging at this point, is Epic Rap Battles of History Season 3. It's a YouTube sketch comedy thing. If you're unfamiliar with it, they take two historical figures or two pop cultural figures, and they have a comedic rap battle with each other. A good example is that they have Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson versus Batman and Robin. They've had 3 times. They've had Darth Vader versus Adolf Hitler, and they're all really, really clever and funny. And even if you're not a fan of rap, which I actually am not, but I find them to be very enjoyable. And if you're kind of having
a Facebook page,
I will.
That sounds really fantastic.
A lot of fun. And they just started doing Series 3, so good time to jump on.
Last week you recommended Adult Wednesday Addams. That turned out to be fantastic. So I now believe anything that you tell me. As far as I'm a bit of a YouTube fiend, I have to say. So rock on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I may well have endorsed this again, but just today I've started working on some new horror stuff. So to get myself in the mood, I was listening to some CBS Radio Mystery Theater because it was picking out episodes that fit the themes that I was talking about. And all of the CBS Radio Mystery Theater, which are these 45-minute horror dramas, are all available for free online. So you can just sort of, anytime you're driving around, you can have them either streaming or download them for free off a million different places. And so I posted one to our Facebook page, the Castle of Horror podcast Facebook page, and, with an example. But you should get into CBS Radio Mystery Theater. These things are great, and there's like 800 of them. It's ridiculous. You can just listen to the ones that all fit a certain theme or whatever, because they used to do one a day from 1974 to 1982. So that's a lot of episodes. So if you like horror anthology and you got to drive around, quit listening to your crazy political crap and listen to some CBS Radio Mystery Theater, and you'll be a better person for it. That's my endorsement of the week. Also, it's NaNoWriMo, though, so if you're thinking about writing a novel, now is the time to try. And that about wraps it up.
You just say what NaNoWriMo stands for, in case people don't know.
You're right. That's how horrible of me. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writers Month. NaNoWriMo. And you can find them at nanowrimo.org. And you don't have to do this. It's just a completely voluntary thing. But basically, it's a giant nationwide race for people to encourage one another to try to write a short novel's worth of writing in the month of November. And so, there's lots of materials on there about advice on how to do that, and the idea is to have 50,000 words by the end of the month. And so you log in every day and report how much you've been writing and so forth. And I had to turn in a script yesterday, so I'm only starting this week, so I'm behind. But I'm definitely doing NaNoWriMo, and I recommend it. It's a good way to sort of get off your ass and just write every day. So that's 2 endorsements. Fun stuff. We're really having a great time on the Castle of Horror podcast. I hope that you guys who are listening, tell your friends, like us on Facebook, leave us a review on iTunes, send around the links. We want to keep growing and growing and growing, like that chicken heart in the old Bill Cosby monologue, where where the world is taken over by a giant chicken heart.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I do, but it's so obscure that I can't. I'm going to have to post the episode of whatever the heck that was. I think it was Lights Out, actually, that was about it. Really seriously, mad scientists tried to grow a chicken heart for reasons that it got out of control and ended up destroying the world because it got so big it punctured the atmosphere. And I don't know. All right. Thanks, everybody. We hope to see you next week when we are starting our new retrospective on werewolves. So thanks, everybody. Bye.
No.
Bye.
Night.